Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's episode of Transform Legal, the video podcast series that attempts to demystify the challenge of the digital transformation challenge facing law firms across the UK. For those that haven't joined us previously, this is a monthly session where we talk to leading voices within the legal sector, some tech focused, some more change focused, around what they see happening within the sector, the challenges that law firms are facing, and how technology is proving to be the solution, but probably sometimes the problem as well. My name is Matt Newton from Nexion. We're a forward-thinking modern technology partner for SME law firms in the UK, providing consultancy services primarily around business analysis, AI and automation technology and solutions and consultancy, and a traditional MSP service also. So this month's session is on driving innovation and adoption, and it's with a good friend of mine, Sarah Blair. The Transform Legal podcast is mainly centered around the digital transformation pyramid, which links the sessions together, where we ask the leading voices to comment on whether that transformation pyramid is the right way to think about how law firms should approach transformation and build their operating model. There's no better person to comment on this than Sarah. Sarah, with 26.2 years, that point two is important, I'm sure. 26.2 years. I'm surprised I wrote it like that. Working for the Thorntons law firm in Scotland, one of the top four independent law firms in Scotland. Sarah is currently operating under the title of Director of Technology and Transformation, but across those 26.2 years, I would imagine she's had a variety of roles, from frontline through to the strategic lead that she's doing now. Let's get going. Hi Sarah, welcome.
Hi, Matt. Hi, everybody, and thanks very much for having me.
Does that make sense? Does it feel like 26.2 years, first of all? And is it the point two?
No, because I feel 27 years old, so I must have started very young.
I was going to say you must have started when you were 12, yes.
of.
But you know,
I think, for me, that's the firm has changed hugely in that time when I joined the firm, and I started on the help desk doing kind of document production and IT service desk. We were four offices and 120 people, and now the firm is nearly 700 across 14 offices right across Scotland. So a huge amount of growth. I've seen managing partners come and go and new strategies come and go. And I think I'm more excited now about my role than I ever have been because of the potential of technology and engaging in, quite a strategic level within the business. So yeah, 26 years, but not standing still at all.
26.2 years. Was it your first role from university? So you studied politics, or well, I recollect, or
Yeah,
political science.
yeah, political science, yeah. And I did a master's in IT, and then I joined a smaller law firm to do kind of IT support, help them with your website, and then I went to join Thorntons as a much bigger law firm thing. And my husband is a teacher, but he studied law, so it was very kind of natural that we all kind of ended up in the same field. But yeah, I joined ended started when we had digital tapes and
Yeah,
technology was very different at that point. So
yeah. When I started working with law firms, well, the company that I started working for, in my early 20s, we were still servicing typewriters in
oh,
law
we still
firms.
got one somewhere, I'm
Yeah.
sure, but
And then it evolved to being the one PC where all the emails come in and the emails would be printed off and passed around
yeah,
to
with a
the various
modem, with
staff.
a modem, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I help with a tech elective at our local university, and one of the sessions I do is the past, present, and future of legal technology. Talking about because they students tend to learn a lot about the academia side of things and the ethics of technology and all that kind of stuff. But actually, it's really great to tell them what a practice management system is and what time recording is, and do they understand the business model. But it blows their mind when we tell them about some of the technology we used to have and what it looked
yeah,
like. So
yeah, yeah. And so you've seen loads of changes, and actually with that, a lot more complexity. And I said in the intro, we talk about the solutions that technology can bring, but also the problems that they can bring. And
Yes,
over the last 10 years, we've seen a real acceleration in terms of the focus and the investment going into technology. But
absolutely.
what I mean, to start off with, what do you think? What do you see when you speak to peers and you engage with other law firms across the UK? Where are law firms at in kind of dealing with the complexity of moving forward a transformation strategy?
Yeah,
That there's loads of investment, but is it getting any easier for them?
I think our my peers, especially, our role has changed quite a lot, in the number of years. Whereas we used to be I think the analogy I used was we used to be the flight engineer. We really just had to kind of make sure all the mechanics were working and not get that involved in plotting the course. But right now, especially with the pace of change, the potential of new technologies coming out, our role now has to be firmly in the cockpit, no matter what the role and what the size of the firm, because we need to help the firm kind of plot that change out. So I think it has, we've already got a difficult enough job with, we're just recovering from COVID and the shock of that, and then all the modernization that we have to do just to help the firm run smoothly. And we've all got projects like practice management and all that kind of thing. But actually looking at strategy is really, really important. And I think, a digital transformation strategies, it's a people strategy more than a tech
Mm,
strategy. So actually, it's more about the opportunities that technology brings. I've heard somebody say that innovation is tech driven, but transformation is people driven. So actually,
mm,
our roles need to be working in the business in a different way. And transfer. I hate, the word digital transformation is really overused, but it's a really good definition of what that role needs to look like, because the one I use, it's a Salesforce one. It's about using digital technology to create new or modify business processes, culture, and customer experiences to meet changing business and market requirements. So it's not really about technology. And the most famous example you always hear is about Blockbuster versus Netflix.
mm,
And what Netflix did was not kind of build a platform. It was understanding the client's needs and how those services were delivered. And I always like to tell the story that Blockbuster, they did a huge amount of what they thought was digital transformation, because they digitized all their back office. And that was all very successful. But what they failed to miss was the way that consumers were, using those services had completely changed, and they got left behind. So that level of transformation, that example, I don't think we're seeing huge amounts of that at the moment. I think firms are grappling a huge amount, and we're not seeing massive amounts of disruptors coming in. We're not seeing firms, do things that feel like a Netflix moment yet. But I do think they're responding to client expectations in a way that they haven't before. And I've seen, I've been speaking to firms over the last 6 months, and I'm actually speaking at a conference with in the south later this year, and the whole theme of that conference, and it's not a big firm conference,
Law
is
South,
about
Mark Day from Law
Mark
South,
Day.
shout
Hi,
out. I think
Mark.
he's
Yeah,
watching. Yeah,
yeah. And that whole conference is centered around client experience. So they're looking at customer experience and digital tools, client journeys, user stories, client listening. I can't wait. I'm going to go
yeah.
and do a session there, and that for me is changing a bit. We are seeing more of that. Um, so I do think firms are getting they're getting more aware of competition, of client experience, and the need to make sure our experiences feel more effortless. But I do think there's a massive challenge, because there's always so much to do. And you know, I'm really lucky. I've got a team dedicated to IT operations, but I also have a dev team, and now I've got a transformation team. So I've got resource that I can pull on,
Yeah.
so that I can, operations and almost BAU projects like cybersecurity, Windows 11, these types of things that just is constant change, can be balanced alongside the needs of a strategy that actually tries to deliver
And
digital
I mean,
transformation.
the picture you painted there, if we think about, for the average, if we think about kind of mid-tier law firms, SME law firms, so Thornton's, circa 500 employees plus, so obviously with size becomes a little bit more of a capability to get the right resource in. But if we think kind of 100 employees up to kind of 500, it's really difficult for the
Yeah,
leaders. I mean, you've gone on a journey, and we're going to talk about that journey in terms of how you started making the technology strategy more human centric. And we just talked about the challenges facing law firms there, but we hardly mentioned kind of IT. We were talking
yeah,
about softer digital kind of requirements. So imagine the challenge for the average 250 employee law firm, where they maybe the law firm leader, the managing partner, doesn't have a transformationally minded kind of wingman or woman there to kind of do that heavy lifting. They
yeah.
maybe think about tech strategy and digital being, new PMS, new servers, or whatever it is. It's really challenging for them, and that's
They're
why,
quite often conflated, aren't they? It's digital transformation is just putting new technology in, and that in itself will be how we digitize, and it's so much more than that. So
I think which is
yeah,
which is why I bore so many clients and potential clients and everybody about the digital transformation pyramid, which is the item that we try and link these conversations together, because I use that pyramid to try and explain that it's not about technology. Technology has a role to play, but unless you create the conditions for success,
yeah,
i.e., what's your business strategy? How do your clients want to be served at the top? Then it's a case of, well, what's the machine that's going to make this happen in terms of analyzing those needs and processing them to, the people and process element
yeah,
level.
absolutely.
Then the technology, is will be untethered from that strategy, and it won't be successful. So your take on that? I'm kind of asking that. It's kind of a loaded question because I know that you agree with it, but also you've presented loads of different versions of that to me. So you agree with that, the
We
digital
love a
transformation.
pyramid, don't we?
We
We love
love
a
a
pyramid.
pyramid. So
I
so
saw
you
an I
agree
saw an
you agree
excellent
with
one
that,
this
and that's
week to do with
that,
AI, and I was like, there you go, there's another one. But yeah.
so you obviously agree with that in the fact that you've got to think about the operating model and the strategy more first, or as much as the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've seen my pyramid, and these are not, if you Google digital transformation pyramids, you'll see versions of both. The one I use is very similar. It thinks about the different levels of technology and the implementation and skills kind of moving up those levels. So the one I use is very similar, but it's got kind of foundational technology. And then what we do to try and explain it is in the middle level, it's about margin and efficiency. So it's about using technology to increase margin, increase productivity, and really kind of make our lives easier and make us more productive. So sitting in that layer are all kinds of technologies, but it's really important. That's where you need to understand the business process. So your good old case management system would sit in there. Any integrations with third party systems would sit there, and that's really focused. That's easy for the business to understand and articulate what those projects look like because it's all to do with margin and efficiency. And then and we see kind of save money in that bit. And then at the top level is it's more about growth. So it's thinking about the client experience and making sure that that is as effortless as possible, that it meets the client's needs, that clients will go out and recommend us because that client experience feels great to them, that it really understands their need and it's a solution to an actual problem and not just something we've stuck up there so we can say we're using client portals, etc., but actually things that deliver a solution to a need. And obviously on growth, it's about looking at digital to scale. So it's looking at services that we deliver in quite a human way, but complementing that with things that clients can use to self-service and using that to scale. So we took on a new client last year with a number of branches, a really high number of branches, and each branch had slightly different needs. We couldn't have done that without some technology automating some of those processes, but complementing an advice service that we give and some knowledge as well. So again, it's not about that pyramid's not for me about the technology. It's about how we use, the opportunities that technology creates and how we then position different projects and objectives on that pyramid. So as you move up the pyramid as well, it's much more difficult. So as you say, if you're an IT director and you've got limited resource, you really are constantly just moving at that bottom layer. But equally, you don't need to go out and buy huge amounts of new technology. You just need to leverage it a bit differently to start to generate some of the things that you can do on the additional layer. But it gets much harder because at the top, you really need to understand how we're delivering legal services. You need to understand the process. You need to deliver how technology and people work together. So it does get, you have to engage the business in a different way at that top level. And for me, it's a great way to deliver and develop new skills and mindsets and work with, across multidisciplinary teams. And that outside in perspective, that's what Blockbuster got wrong, and that's what that top level is really all about. So
And,
that's
and I
all
love the
very
way,
similar, but
yeah, I love the way you phrase it as well. Save money.
yeah,
So save money at the bottom. So we're increasing the efficiencies of the operations, and we're using technology to do that. And as you move up to the top of your pyramid, as you're conveying that growth. So let's make money. So let's be maybe more
exactly.
innovative. Let's listen to the clients. Let's deliver them, of course, the services, of course, more efficiently.
Yeah,
But let's gain more business and more clients
yeah.
by doing things slightly
And
differently.
it's supporting growth. That for me is really, and that might be new services, that might be completely new services that we didn't do before, that we can now do because we have a piece of technology. More often than not, it's a combination of the two. And we're full service. I didn't say that at the beginning, but we
Yeah.
are a really big firm, but we do services right from making your will right up to, really complex IP. We've got public sector clients, institutions, right down to, we will, we're there for life. That's, Thornton's for Life is a range of services that we will step you through. And again, it's understanding that client's needs is how we try
Mhm.
and sell and describe those services in terms of what the client's needs are through life, rather than come and do a power of attorney with us.
And to kind of think about this practically, how you actually facilitate this. So I once again bore people, but this time I bore people about the power of business analysis. So one of the key services that we provide as an outsourcer is business analysis, because I come across a lot of law firm leaders and maybe IT directors as well, which know that there needs to be this drive forward and this improvement in their digital services offering and internal operations, but they struggle to plot a path, to create a plan. And the reason for that is, especially at the lower tier of SME law firms, there may be, spinning plates, and they don't have
Yeah,
dedicated resource that's actually engaging with the firm. So business analysts that are mapping key processes, getting commentary from the staff and potentially clients. So, the power of business analysis to create an as is situation, a foundation of visibility, I called it
yeah,
recently.
yeah.
So
Love
for
it.
a law firm, which sounds, yeah, don't mock me for that, but a foundation of visibility as is, and then they make a decision next.
Yeah,
But for you, you've been on a journey. Of course, you believe in business analysis, but you've actually taken a slightly different path of unlocking this through the power of service design,
yeah,
through your
yeah,
own education, and then also, bringing those resources in. Can you explain what service design is for those that don't understand it, and how you've started to use it in the journey that you've been on?
yeah. So I think more people will probably have heard of design thinking, thinking about IDEO and post-it notes and lots of things like that. So that's more commonly. And design thinking is a set of tools and methods, and it normally ends up with product. And I'm really lucky that in Dundee, where our HQ is based, we have Dundee Nagus College, and they have a dedicated service design academy that they've run for the last few years. And so, in our tech strategy, I mean, this is going back probably 6 years now, we always said, start with the problem. Technology's, a problem looking for a solution, looking for a problem. And we would try and go in that way. But as we were starting to uncover more complex problems, I realized that, you can't just do that with a process map, and you can't just do that with, just going in and chatting with people. So I was lucky enough to do the PDA, personal development accreditation up at the SDA. And it just really inspired me about what service design can bring to a business. So it's a method and a process for solving complex problems. And if you look it up, there's a double diamond that we use. And the first diamond is all about starting with the right problem. So stepping back and considering the wider picture, really thinking about the challenges and opportunities, talking to lots of people, including clients, if it's, if it's an area where we have to make sure the client's voice is in there. And then kind of narrowing it down to, right, actually, what problem we're trying to solve. Is it what we thought? Because you can't just, quite often somebody will come to me and say, right, we need a tech solution to do. And then I'll encourage them to step back a little bit and we'll find out either that tech's not the answer or the problem that they thought we were encountering was actually, it's different once you get to talk to people. And then the second diamond is all about solving that problem right. And really kind of working through what the solutions might look like and coming up with something that can be implemented. Testing and iterate, it's very agile. It can be quite messy because as you start, as I say, you'll often uncover 10 mini projects that you want to do and you'll have to prioritize them. But the tools and methods help you through that process. And I learned some of them and started using some of them. And so if digital technology can enable opportunities, then how do we create the culture to find those opportunities? So that's why I was really kind of blown away. And this gave me a really structured approach to do that. So it's also great because it encourages collaboration. So it starts at the ground up. It's not leaders coming up with solutions which are disjointed from the reality of what's happening at the coalface, so to speak. We always get cross-functional teams together. We always get the people that are doing the work in the room at the beginning. It encourages client-centered thinking because we always encourage them to have insights of the client voice in the room, either through research or feedback, kind of surveys or what have you. And it teaches skills that I don't think that lawyers they're not taught creativity and failing fast and trying new things and even empathy. It's more about putting yourself in client shoes when you talk about service design, but a lawyer might think empathy is just knowing how to serve it, how to fix their problem because they're really, they really are client centered, but not often combined with some of these skills. So um, we've used that methodology in a number of different ways, and we'll talk a wee bit about how we've just grown that team. We're now kind of it's a bit like we've done service design to ourselves because we didn't really know how it was going to fit, but we've tried things out. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. We've learned more about skills we have to develop, having the right people in the room and how to prioritize. And we've had to learn that through the last few years as well.
And so from a business analysis point, so business analysis is it's more technically focused quite
Yeah,
often. I mean, so our most senior business analyst is his background, software developer, business leader, understands the workings of a law firm, understands the workings of technology, and then moved into business analysis. So it's a technical, if this then that happens, this is the flow from a process point of view. Whereas with the modern challenges, which is brilliant and it's crucial, it's opened so many eyes within our client base in terms of where their starting point is, and once again, that foundation of visibility is what's going on at the moment. But where service design comes, there's a softer wrapper that goes around that, and the fact that
absolutely. Yeah,
it can capture, and it's kind of, if you think about the journey that law firms are on at the moment, where trying to be more client centric, trying to bring, transform how they deliver services to clients, it fits that purpose really, really well because it
it
links
really
that
does.
technical piece,
Yeah,
what's happening, to
exactly.
actually, well, what does the client want to happen?
Yep. And some of the tools and methods you can use can be quite granular, so we'll map a client journey and that is, it's it's like a business analysis map, but you're doing it with the client's view rather than the internal process. So, it does, there's definitely a lot of crossover, but I think business analysis is, as you say, it's more technical and it actually it bridges the gap probably in a way that we haven't done. So we're almost
Yes.
on the journey now where we're thinking about, I've just put my service design team through some lean training to help us with mapping processes in a more granular way and uncovering waste. And I think lean's fantastic. We've used lean for years, but what lean misses is the empathy bit and the client's perspective of things. So they have a lot in common, but I do
Yeah.
think service design gives you a range of tools to start at different levels.
And it
Um,
also it unlocks extra budget, I feel, potentially,
yeah,
because you're bringing the client voice more. So we're doing a business analysis project for a 250 employee law firm at the moment, and we're mapping the customer touch points. Okay, so cool, there's a touch point there, but we're not going any further to kind of to capture, well, how does the client feel about that touch point, right?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, once you start bringing the client's voice into it, then, whereas budget historically from a technology, we're from a technology point of view was keep the machine running, okay, and try and make it run a bit more efficiently. Suddenly, and this is what's needed, once you start capturing the client's voice, then there's potential solutions and opportunities and blockers and whatever else to
yeah,
uncover and to move past. And that potentially needs
absolutely.
a little bit more budget as well. So you're given a much more holistic picture to the
Yeah.
executive when you're trying to implement, change and get the sign off for
And
additional
your
spend.
your solutions are more likely to stick if you know that people internally and your clients are going to use it and it will be adopted because you've already kind of worked out the need and the problem you're trying to solve. A couple of points on the client view. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that discovery phase. So it's actually, we don't move into anything till we've done that. That's a quarter of the process is discovery. And I think Einstein had said if I had an hour to solve a problem, didn't he? I'd spend 55 minutes on the problem and 5 on the solution. So don't get the idea that service design is like a hackathon and you're just coming up with, solutions at the end. It's actually much more kind of considered than that. And it's much messier and it takes a lot longer than a 2-day hackathon in reality. The other thing is the client insights piece really important. And I think lots of firms will do client surveys and they'll do feedback, but service design says that you need two sets of feedback. You need qualitative feedback as well as quantitative. So quantitative will tell you the what you might need to do. So, fixing a problem because your clients are complaining about a bit, or, their feedback on a specific point will give you something to look at. But qualitative feedback, so quantitative gives you the data, qualitative gives you the why. And
Mm.
actually, some of our ideas for potential new solutions, whether they're digital or new service areas, have come from conversations with clients where they've told us why they came to us, how they felt when they did it, why it was a good service, why it was, there were opportunities for us to improve that service. And that's really, really important as well. So the
And does
why.
that and does that help adoption internally? So when you're asking whoever it is, legal ops or fee earners or whatever it may be, to make changes to their working practices, having the insight of why, especially if it's from the client, I'm guessing that
Exactly.
helps kind of change behavior and improve adoption.
Absolutely. Yep. And even just some of these tools, that it's all about digital transformation. We put a new document management system in last year. So instead of just kind of going straight to RFP stage and, going out and talking about requirements, we just had a whole stream of workshops where we said to people, like, don't tell us exactly what you need, but tell us what the pain points are. And
Mm.
actually that gave us a set of 10 focus areas where we were able to then say, right, well, this is the priority. This is what we need to focus on. So the tools can be used in lots of different ways, but it meant that when we were testing it, when we were piloting it, when we were looking at requirements, we really knew what was going to matter to people. And I
Yeah.
think that is,
And
really
not every
important.
solution is about, I mean, so within our business analysis work, we use ECRS. So eliminate, combine, rearrange, and simplify.
Yeah.
So when we're mapping processes and analyzing them, first of all, we rank the maturity of them. So yeah, where is it standardized? Is it quite, or is it chaotic? Then we're looking at, right, okay, where can we use ECRS to eliminate combine, rearrange, and simplify? And a lot to improve that process. Now, a lot of those improvements aren't spend money on technology.
No,
It quite
no.
often could be improved training, it could be improved documentation, whatever it may be. So that, although this is, the way that you're conveying this is obviously delivered from, it's driven by yourself as the transformation and technology leader, but actually a lot of the solutions are going to be softer things that are
Uh,
nothing to do with
I
technology.
would say more often than not, it's people in process we uncover issues with. Either you've got the wrong people doing the wrong job, or, processes either don't exist or are not being followed for a particular reason. And quite often, we'll need to look at those parts first. And even if we do get to technology, they've probably got something already that they've either developed and are not using or that we can use to do that. So it's absolutely, we don't ever lead with they might ask me the technology question, especially with, what's going on at the moment and how much
Yeah,
interest there is in new technologies, and we'll get onto that. But
yeah,
they might ask me that question, but quite often the answer is, well, let's take a look at it. Let's talk to a few people. Oh, did you actually know, there's a way you do that, but people aren't using it. Well, let's find out why. And
yeah.
it's a human problem rather than a tech problem
And
and solution.
we obviously can't have one of these conversations without talking about AI. But before we have the inevitable conversation, just staying on the practicality of it, we've just talked about, we've talked about mapping processes being a practical step, looking for wins that aren't necessarily technology. We've talked about engaging with clients and capturing that information. Another practical step. I know that you run workshops to be able to from an from an ideation point of view
Yeah.
as well. So just talk me through how you facilitate them, your team facilitates them, and can you
Yeah,
give me an example of how that's been used in one of your projects?
so I can give you a few different examples, and sometimes they might be really high level, and we're starting with a blank sheet of paper, and we're just bringing a team together. And sometimes we might be looking at a really specific issue and actually mapping the process out. So, the tools give you a lot of different methods to use and approaches to use. But um, so an example of the first one, so we've got a new team or a growing team, and they haven't got a well-developed strategy yet. So they know, they want to grow, and they know that, that there's maybe a particular market they want to go for, but they haven't kind of really defined that into any objectives that I can measure. And part of what I think is really important is being able to measure impact, whatever that looks like. So we would sit with them down, and quite often you'll find these teams, cross role teams. So, an assistant right up to a partner will not sit down that often as a group and look at the bigger picture. So the first thing we'll do is we put them into a discovery workshop, and we'll bring in data from the market, and we'll say, here's some things that your competitors are doing. Here's what their services look like. Here's how they, might compare in price. We'll look at how they decide on pricing and what the business model is, because that's a really important conversation to have. If it's fixed fee work, then what we focus on might be different from if it's billable hour work, which has, a whole set of different kind of challenges and approaches to it. And we'll bring in some client feedback so that they can kind of see what our current clients look like, who their top 10 clients are, what the billing profiles look like. So as much data as we can, but also some client voices that we've gone out and just spoken to about what they like, what they don't like, and what their needs might be. And in that workshop, it's not, it sounds really technical, but literally we just sit down and we chat through that with them to give them a bit of context. And then we'll ask them to think about opportunities and pain points as a team. So we'll say, right, just literally just we use six hat thinking sometimes for that. That's quite a common tool. So your pain points will be your black hat, and you've just got to think about things that kind of give you grr moments. And then you've got to take that hat off and think in a very kind of optimistic way and think about opportunities. So we gather loads of insights like that. We might then say to them, right, let's just map a process out, and let's find use the term, but your FFS moments in that process, just at a high level, which are the bits that might then be priorities for us. And at the end of that workshop, or depending on time, we will then say, right, what we've uncovered are these priorities and these areas where we know you as a team should look at. And we'll get them to think about the effort and the impact of those projects, because some of them are real projects. They'll take a lot of time. We might need to do a series of workshops to take them through that. And some of them will be quick fixes they can go away and do straight away without any new technology, or maybe there's a marketing campaign they want to do, maybe there's a client they want to target, maybe we need more research. So that's a really high level one, and that's how you can then kind of help a team form a strategy in some areas where they need to work and some areas where we will have opportunity to work with them. On the other side of that, much more granular, we're currently mapping out a lean process. So we started out with a workshop looking at our digital mail process and some of the pain points in that for locational offices. And right at the moment, we're looking at a very detailed lean process to say, what are the wastes and where can technology help us do more, where we've got people doing manual tasks at that process. So um, it comes in a variety. We'll do client workshops where we'll just use our, maybe an unhappy client, we'll go and actually find out more and unpack that with them. And things where it's cross-departmental. So we've got a client onboarding team, a client welcome team, and the process between that we want to make sure is really joined up for our clients. So we've spent a lot of time over the last few years working on that client journey, automating where we can, bringing technology in where technology makes sense, but actually one of the things our clients tell us is they love the welcome team. They're really efficient. The solicitor comes to the meeting really prepared. They've got lots and lots of information that they needed, but it's still got those human touches that they value. So that's been a detailed project at a much more granular level as well.
Can you, brilliant. I mean, can you imagine being a law firm leader of a mid-market law firm without all the data that these sessions are giving, and they're trying to make, without all the data that the workshops and the process mapping and the service design work, and they're trying to make a decision on how to improve the efficiency of their firm, where technology plays a part, and so on. And this is what I'm seeing all the time, and
Yeah,
these are quite often these are lawyers that are now managing partners or chief executives. So they may they maybe are missing some of those core project management, all the kind of skills that we've been talking about, business
yeah,
analysis also, and they're limited in terms of the resource they have to get these in. And even if you have budget, there's not an awful lot of Sarah Blairs out there that's got the relevant tech, and we've talked before about leaders in law firms now needing to be more T-shaped.
yeah,
And this is, the people that have worked in my team previously will know in something else that I bore people about. The need to be T-shaped. There's a lot of people in legal that are very capital I-shaped. So a thin, a narrow expertise, but very deep. So in legal, for example, whereas the modern law firm now needs T-shaped people, so that you've got
yeah,
maybe that legal column or maybe IT, but then more broadly, you've got a shallower depth of knowledge in business analysis, project management, change management, finance, marketing, all these kind of things. And I honestly, listening to you, the data that those sessions must generate, that will fuel a strategy for 2 years. You know,
absolutely. It's hard though. It's, where do you even start? Because we're multi-service. Which department shouts the loudest sometimes gets the
yeah.
most attention. So it's almost like even at that top level, you've got to understand what the longer term strategy looks like. And that, that I can't do that. That needs to come from me having the right conversation with leaders. So as long as you can map out where you want to go, you can then help work out what those bigger strategies are. Is it, growing your services? Is it getting more clients? Is it cross-selling better? Is it creating new digital services? Just a high level one can start you off. But a really good term I heard a few weeks ago, and I loved it, and I have to say that's why I'm probably not the best facilitator in the world, is the facilitator in the room. This is why I've got two new service designers who are brilliant, is the conductor. They're not playing the instruments, they're not bringing the actual music alive. They're just making sure they bring all the right voices into the orchestra at the right time. And that is a real skill, but it's a skill that can be learned. Probably not by you and I, Matt, because we're very
Mm,
bad conductors because we
yeah.
we like to get involved and pick up the
Yeah. Yeah.
instruments and have a go and say, I've got the solution over here. It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
tuba. That's all we need. So, but I'm watching these really skilled individuals now, just bringing the right voices and knowledge into the room at the right
A service
times.
therapist. And how does that make you feel, Bob, when you have to deal with that challenge? And what about you, Susan? Yeah, kind of,
Exactly.
yeah, bringing all the opinions in.
Yeah,
But
but it's not, it's the tools and methods help you do that. You don't have
yeah.
to be an expert kind of strategist, or, you literally just have to use the tools in a way that gives people the voice that they need to use and to uncover all the things that you didn't know about. Because I'm always shocked at, I think I know how a department works or a business process
Mm,
works. And then you actually get in and about it, and the stuff that you find out is you're uncovering rocks and opening cans of worms and just
100%.
going, Did
So
anybody
much.
know this was happening?
Yeah, honestly, so much anecdotal knowledge powers our law firms. Anecdotal. If Beryl left, we'd be ruined because Beryl knows actually, and also a lack of
Absolutely.
standardization across multi offices. So
Yeah.
especially in the
And
in the times of
Beryl might be a moaner.
yeah,
Beryl might be one you're like, oh, don't talk to Beryl
I know.
because she'll just have it. But often they are the sources of the
But
most
you need,
innovative
yeah.
ideas that you could ever find just
But
by
people switch
listening
off
more.
after a time, don't they? Yeah, listen, hashtag save Beryl.
Save Beryl.
Yeah, especially when it's multi-site and in these days of acquisitions,
Yeah.
you've got loads of micro cultures that pop up and micro processes. And once again, I mean, we're working with a multi-site law firm to try and cut through that to get some standardization. Because until you've got standardization, how can you automate and how can you improve? I'm conscious of time, and I know
Yeah.
what we're
We haven't even
like.
talked about AI
So,
yet.
so fine, we're going to do 5 minutes on AI because the I think that when it comes to AI, and once again, that poor managing partner that's struggling with all the complexity of change, and now, hey, we've got AI coming into it. How am I supposed to? Is it relevant to me, and so on and so forth? How has AI fitted into this structure? So where have you got on your AI journey? And having built this foundation of capturing data and engaging and using service designers is adding AI a lot more simpler? Adding AI as a consideration a lot more
I
simpler?
think it's given us a real advantage in a number of ways. And again, it's not that different to what we just talked about. AI is a much bigger opportunity. The capabilities of it are really huge compared to what we've had. It's like having a new superpower tool in your toolkit that you never had before, but and you're still trying to work out how to use it because it didn't really come with any instructions, but it's going to absolutely zap through some of the stuff you couldn't do before. But equally, you're not going to use it for precise tasks. I've just created a new analogy here. You've got a massive tractor and it's just going to actually bulldoze through things. And you've got people hoeing and they're too busy hoeing to actually, to stop. But equally, it's not going to be right for a lot of those precision
Mm.
tasks where you need a specific tool or a hoe of a certain kind of way. So again, it's a massive adoption and engagement challenge. It's an education challenge, and change management. Those are the things that are going to be the tricky bits. So because we've already got kind of a little bit of that engagement, and we've got the way of mapping, finding the right problems and then mapping
Mm.
them out. That is given that gives us that culture of being able to engage. So I think that has given us an opportunity. The other great thing for me is, as I say, people are now coming to me and saying, I think AI should be able to do this.
Yeah,
And it gives me that opening that they might never have thought technology could do before. And I will say yes and or
yeah.
yes but, because actually AI might not be the answer, but it gives us a chance to actually get in and about it. So the difficulty right now is just everybody's so excited about it. And I think one of our priorities has to be literacy, just general literacy. So we're focusing on engaging at different levels, using the tools that we've got, mapping out processes, finding the tasks that AI can do. I'm really lucky at the opportunity it's given me because we have some Innovate UK funding, and I'm not buying tools with that funding. What we've used that funding for are two service designers to do more work with us to help us uncover those opportunities. We're going to use it to fund LTC4 training and some AI literacy training so that we can actually drive that out in the next 6 months. And we have funded a little bit of technology, but not with partners that just sell technology, partners that have legal tools that also understand the importance of education. So it's not just a tool, we'll come with you, we'll do the education program. We've got a platform that we can develop things on. We're going to have a look at the Nexium platform
Yeah.
because again, what comes with that is education and experimentation together. And that's what we're focusing our program around.
And I think that so obviously we have our own AI platform so that we've been testing with we've done a lot of work within the accountancy sector, and but what it's done is it's been such a huge learning curve. And if we didn't have the conditions for success in terms of our business analysis and our consultancy services, we could see how you would run into challenges with AI. For example, okay, here's a crazy example. So AI within the accountancy sector. Obviously, we've launched with 10 use cases for a large audit department, and out of those 10 use cases, a lot of them are, assessing documents, summarizing documents, extracting from documents. The biggest problem we've run into on that, which is something you wouldn't believe, is the math capabilities of AI
Yeah,
are actually quite poor. So the problem is that, for example, one of our use cases, we're summarizing and extracting data from bank accounts, from bank statements, and we just want it to identify the entries over a certain amount, over 100,000 or so. It falls down on that more than so than the complex issues. So
yeah,
unless you've got the condition, if you could imagine that if this had been taken by an internal firm, law firm or professional services firm, and run with it, you can imagine the challenges that they would encounter without the right conditions for success, without the process mapping, the ideation, the problem solving. But then also our testing strategy now is completely different to how it was 12 months ago. So had to go into so much more granular detail than we
yeah,
do with normal software deployment, because you've got to test because you'll get 99% of the times it will return the right answer, and then the 100th time it won't. So
yeah.
it's even more important than anything that's come before it to have those conditions for
Don't just
success.
drive that tractor straight into the fields. Yeah,
Yeah, honestly, and there's so much. I mean, we're as excited as each other about it. I mean,
absolutely.
and I mean, Deep Seek, obviously the news that's come out from there. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm excited from that point of view. I know it's obviously Chinese, so there's considerations from the the people behind
But
it.
that open source
But if it's
model
open source,
opportunity is
so this is
really,
the thing. So on our platform, obviously, ChatGPT is an open source. We've got our platform, would be able to bring DeepSeek into it as open source, and actually create more data security than
yeah.
using ChatGPT, hopefully, in the
And
same
and
way it has
fine
with the other
tuning in a
LLMs.
way that you could not do before. But I think, Matt, one thing to consider is effort and impact, right? So this is why we've spent quite a bit of time thinking about how we engage, because those types of tasks you describe and some of the use cases we've had brought to us, it takes quite a bit of time, as you say. AI is good at tasks, not work. So what are the tasks that it will do, and what are the tasks it won't do? Well, it'll do the summarization and the extraction, but maybe not the maths bit. So maybe, so that all takes time. And then you've got to work out, can it do the tasks that you've got, and what's the context, and what workflow does it have to sit into it? And that all takes really, a lot of time and effort. So actually, is it easier? And then you've got to think about the business model, because if
Mm,
that task, that work is billable hour, then you're really, you're cannibalizing some of the work, and you've got to think about how you
mm,
charge it. So what we're trying to do with some of our experimentation are just thinking about the easy wins. So we got all the partners in the room for the AGM and asked them, what if we gave them a kind of a representation of what their day might look like based on some interviews that we'd done. And it was a lot of it was emails, drafting documents, creating replies to clients, financial stuff. Somebody said diary crap takes up quite, too much of their day. But actually, what came out of that was a lot of non-chargeable tasks that I think the AI is capable of. And even just using things like Copilot, if we could, work out some of these non-chargeable opportunities, then you're starting to unlock real value without that huge investment in time and process and what have you. And you're just opening their eyes to, oh, this is quite cool. What if?
mm,
And then actually your what if questions, you can start to think about the more complex ones. So it's really hard because we've gone for two use cases at the moment that we're starting to unpack. And as you say, it takes time and effort, and it won't do all of it, but it will do some of it. And we've now got a queue of loads of those to look at. So how do you assess them? So again, impact and effort. Where are you going to get maybe some quick wins for not that much process mapping? Starting to build stuff. Copilot Studio is really exciting. I built a
mm.
bot in like 10 minutes last week.
Yeah.
And it's like, great. So, okay, how do we leverage that? How do we upskill everybody so they start to understand what they can do with prompt engineering and with RAG using these bots and these low code technologies that doesn't need fine tuning, and what might need fine tuning?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can
Is
see
that
I
is that
am.
is
One
the
of your
use?
questions was, are you excited about AI? I think. can
Yeah,
probably
so
answer that.
it's use case and training really. I think so much of the work. So we do use case analysis for law firms in terms of from an AI point of view, and that we've taken a number of use cases up to the point where we've created a POC and maybe identified that it's not quite ready for it
Yeah,
yet. But
yeah.
that use case but that's sat there as documentation,
Try
and
again in a
we will
month.
and
Yeah,
and we will loop, we will or we're already looping back on things that we thought wasn't necessarily possible kind of 6 or 8
yeah,
months ago.
yeah,
Sometimes because of the advances in technology, sometimes improvement in our prompt engineering. Within our platform as well, you're able to daisy chain apps together. So we've talked before about the token limits. So quite often you're not necessarily hitting the limitation of the technology, but you're hitting the limitation of that prompt of that token limit. So
yeah.
so the use case analysis and the training, whatever you put into that, that's not going to be wasted money, even if
No,
the
I'll have
technology is not
just
not
get
ready to do anything at the moment.
it's the literacy bit that worries me. I think I'd said to you before, we are
Oh
probably over
no,
time now, but
sorry. If there's anybody left on, sorry. We were supposed to finish 10 minutes ago. We will finish in 60
we've still got
seconds.
9 people who are listening, so that's good.
Yeah, yeah. There we go. Yeah, yeah.
But
Literally.
that
So
the
my
the
mum
Law
and dad
Society
are still on,
conference
and
was
my kids are on a teacher
my
training day, but
sister.
they're still on. Yeah. So yeah.
So I was just going to say the bit that worries me is this reticence to start getting involved and start looking at the technology and getting basic literacy because I said to you before, the Law Society of Scotland's main conference last year, I did a webinar on AI, and um, they asked the question right at the beginning of the session, what percentage of people are confident with their knowledge of AI? And there was only 12% answered positively, and everybody else was either not confident at all or a bit, but I need to know more. And that we had to change the content of our session because we hadn't kind of realized how big that literacy gap is. And I don't think legal is alone, but I do think the barriers we have in place for our culture, for data privacy concerns, all those things, we need to overcome them to try and improve that AI literacy and spend some time on it because things are moving so fast that there's a real risk that transformation we talked about at the beginning with the Netflixes of the world coming along, that's going to happen despite us instead of
Well, of
with
course.
us.
I mean, so in terms of a takeaway, then, so what would be your key piece of advice for law firms? Just that maybe the progress has slowed or don't know where to start.
Yeah.
What would be your key piece of advice?
So, well, I asked ChatGPT. So, ChatGPT
Of
says,
course, you did.
em- embrace change and understand the drivers behind it, align with strategy, adopt a human centered approach to solve the right problems, prioritize education, people, and change management, and view AI as a tool to augment, not replace human expertise. I love that.
Yeah.
My takeaway would be it's still a tool. So, make sure you understand what the tool can do, and you have to have Carl's term, Carl from Kim Technology, I loved it. I've been using that is it's technology in the loop, not human in the loop. Understand that actually it can do certain tasks, but we need to understand all the human and the workflow and the context around it. And my a book, if firms are wondering where to start, there's a fantastic book by Isabel Parker called Successful Digital Transformation in Law Firms. And I know she was at Freshfields and she's now with White and Case, but she uses kind of 5 principles. So she said, take a strategic approach, focus on customers, commit to seeing change through, put budget in the right place, hire the right people to make change happen. So they're not doing the BAU job, but they're actually focused on change and create a culture which transformation can flourish within. So I love those kind of 5 approaches, and I would recommend that. It's a great read. It's very accessible. So
Wonderful. And I suppose from my takeaways, just very broadly create the conditions for success.
yeah,
Digital transformation is not just about buying new tech. And
no,
if you actually, only 67% of the technology that we have is utilized. So actually, you're probably a bit better off by increasing the budget for people, and sticking with what you have and getting the most out of what you
absolutely.
have
Yeah.
most of the time. Wonderful, Sarah. We've only run over by 15 minutes. So
Pretty good going for us,
Yeah,
Matt.
that's pretty good. Yeah. So thanks for everyone for joining. Look out for the next session. The next session, I've actually got a recorded session with our good friend Derek from Hyperscale. So the next session will be a recorded session. Thanks, Sarah, and
Thank you.
thanks to everyone. Please have a good day and take care. Cheers.